What is going on, everyone, and welcome to Bending the Narrative here on the Aspect Network. I'm one of your hosts, Alex Batts, and joining me every week to discuss the latest and greatest in the world of Avatar is Kate Kroonquist. Kate, how are you doing today?
Alex, I am doing great. Thank you so much for asking. So, today we are entering into the world of firebending with the episode The Deserter. So, to start this week, let's take a look at the Avatar map and track Team Avatar's journey.
Yeah, they made okay. I said this
We actually
jokingly
made
before.
progress.
Yeah, we made like all of the progress that we needed to make the entire season, and this week, and then next week. Like they traveled so far. I'm so proud of them, honestly.
We finally
Um,
did it.
yeah, they went north a good chunk. So
Good
we're now
chunk.
like close to the ocean that's going to
Hmm.
separate them from the Northern Water Tribe. So, which they'll take a like eastern detour after this, but yeah, they made progress. So, we're getting places, which is good. I guess they're like,
We're moving.
is this Fire Nation still? Or
I think
because
it
like,
is.
because
It's a
they go
Fire
into
Nation
like,
village.
yeah, so I mean, I have to assume so. Like
Or I think it's like it's earth-bending
Earth
territory,
King,
but it's
but it's
occupied
occupied
by, yeah,
Fire Nation and has
by
been
Fire
for
Nation.
like 100 years, I guess, or like
I think so.
80,
Yeah.
probably. We'll give
Because
them
I
like 20.
read, I have a fun fact later that I think confirms this. It's something, it was in the Avatar extras, and they talked about how they have this Fire Nation festival to make the Fire Nation people feel at home because
Mm,
it's occupied land.
yeah, and they're the
So
bad guys.
they're, and they're the bad guys, guys.
Again, breaking news: Fire Nation,
Breaking news if
bad
you didn't
guys.
know.
Yeah. So I mean, they make progress. We're still in some foresty area. I like the setting of this episode a lot. It's really
It is. I
there's so
talked
many
about
like
too a
beautiful
bit like,
shots.
yes, the opening, the coloring, something with the coloring and the watercoloring and the backgrounds in this episode. They went ham on. Some artist was
Putting in
They were
work.
doing their thing. They were putting in the
Yeah,
work. It's really beautiful. I was like, it's a
it's
lot of
great.
like beautiful greens and tan hues. I was like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
it's got there, and there's a lot of kind of meditative like shots too, because like there's a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
reflection that Aang kind of has to like try to go on and fail miserably a little bit, but like,
Fail
but like the,
miserably.
his master is like, hey, you gotta calm yourself down. But yeah. So as Kate said, this week we're meeting Jong Jong with episode 16. It's directed by Lauren McMullen and written by Tim Hendrick. And if you're just joining us, we will be discussing the show in its totality. So be warned about spoilers. Again, I feel like we've said this for like a dozen weeks at this point. If this is your first episode, it's kind of weird starting on point, but I mean, welcome.
But like, yeah, welcome regardless.
Yeah,
They're all great
still
episodes.
they're fantastic. So, Kate, let's start with you. What are your some of your like overall thoughts on this episode?
I love this episode. I forgot how much I did actually. I thought, looking back when I first watched this, I think in middle school or high school, I never really remembered this episode that much, but rewatching it, I was like, oh, this is a very important episode, actually. And it's
Mm-hmm.
really good. We learn a lot. We learned a lot about Aang and these characters in general. We see a lot. This is Aang really overcoming his impatience and his
Yeah,
childness. And it's childnessness, I guess. I
childlike
don't know.
qualities.
Childlike
His
qualities. Thank you.
yeah, his like he's just very like you were saying, just impatient. Like he's not wanting to wait at all. So it's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just a lot here. I feel like this like middle, I guess we're towards the like end sort of this season now, but like the middle-ish part of the season, I'd forgotten a lot of the like finer details in these episodes. Like I
Yeah.
thinking about it, I'd be like, oh yeah, this is the one where that happens. But then like actually sitting down and rewatching, I'm like, oh, okay, like yeah, this is really important. There's a lot of like
Mm.
meat here. Again, we've said it a lot, but I'm always impressed with how much they're able to pack into like 22-minute episodes. Like
Yes. And
there's a
imply,
lot.
even with just like one little line or a little offshoot or something in the background, you're like, it's it's all connected. This whole world is so deep. And I like this episode a lot too for the lore that we learn. Even about
Yeah,
Zhao. I love Admiral Zhao. I read this rewatch. I'm like, I think he's one of my favorite characters. I gotta be
he's
honest.
great. The Zhao lore that we get here is fantastic, and it also like it
Yeah.
fleshes him out a lot. And you're like, oh, okay, I understand you more now. Not necessarily like in a like, oh yeah, you're great, but in a like, okay, I see
He's a
the
good
kind of
villain. I love a
like
good
yeah,
villain.
I see the
Yeah.
kind of person that you are. Like
Hmm.
but yeah, so this episode opens with the gang looking at like information post that's on a path.
Hmm.
They see a poster for a Fire Days food festival, which again, there's also a joke that Sokka makes where he's like, "Is there a menu on there?" Like, because he's always trying to find some food. Um, so Aang
But it's
says
also,
like
it's like a good, it makes a point too, where it's like, they need
they need,
food.
yeah, they
That's why they're
always
stopping.
every episode just opens with them needing food, which is hilarious. It's a great
It's
constant through
great.
line. So Aang says it's a good idea to go so that he can see some people practicing
Hmm.
firebending. There's wanted posters of Aang and the Blue Spirit, and some
Hmm.
other people on the post that are like the camera lingers on it. It's like, ooh, this is probably going to be important later.
Like, you might
um,
want to remember this.
yeah, so I love that they're like, oh, we'll wear disguises and it'll be fine. And I love how like cool both Sokka and Katara look whenever they like
And
put
they're
their
like
hoods over and
capes.
like yeah, and they're like all mysterious and stuff. And then Aang just like pulls his like his
Shirt up. I
yeah,
don't
he's
even know
just
what it
like
was.
yeah.
And
It's
he's like
great.
hunched
And
over because it doesn't fit.
yeah, it's hilarious,
Oh,
honestly.
Aang.
And then they tell Appa and Momo to hide out in the bushes, like whenever they go out. And like Momo obviously is able to fit inside the little bush, and then Appa just moves and like squats down, and it's the cutest thing. Like
They really leaned into Appa's cuteness, I feel like, in the later half of this season. They were
mhm.
like, no, he's cute, and we need to really ham it up more.
Yeah,
And
it's great.
thank you. Thank you, animators, for doing that, because Appa's
It's
so
so
cute.
good. And he literally seems like you have seen pets do that, where they're like, "Well, I can't see you. You
They're like, it's
definitely
like
can't see
always,
me."
he reminds me of like a Bernese mountain dog or something. One of those like big dogs that are just, they have the temperament of a little mouse or something. You
They
know what I
think
mean?
they're
Like they
so
think they're
small.
so tiny and
Yeah,
they're so sweet and like so gentle. Oh, this makes
it's
me
great.
rewatching this. I want an Appa plushie. Guys, I think I'm gonna invest.
Just get a life size one. Just get
A
it too
life
big for
size
your house.
one next to my map.
um, yeah, but so they're hiding, and then the gang walks into the festival. I love the way the festival looks. It looks awesome.
Yes.
Like it's just such again, like we were saying, it's such a great setting and like just animated so well. You really can like feel that there's a festival going on, which is super cool. You get them getting the masks from this one vendor because they like look around. And they're
Mhm.
like, oh, where can we? I love it. There's again just great like comedic bits. They're like, oh, where are we gonna find these masks? And then the dude's like, Fire
Get
Nation
your
mask. They're
masks
like,
right
yeah, he's like, get
here.
your mask over here. And it's like, oh, okay. And they're like, oh, that was
It's
easy.
such a good classic bit. I love it.
Yeah,
I
it's
love
great.
that.
So
And in
they,
this festival, they really show up their Chinese inspiration here for the Fire Nation.
mhm.
They have the Chinese dragon puppets that passes by and all these masks. I think in some of my research have been inspired from ancient Chinese masks. It was
Yeah,
something the same as the blue spirit mask that was inspired
was
by.
also inspired, but yeah, which totally makes
Yeah.
sense. And I love that they always find a way, like whenever they can, to integrate that
Mhm.
into the show. It's great to see.
It's
Um,
so beautiful.
so they each get masks. Sokka goes to the food booth because, of course, he's looking for food. He gets flaming fire flakes and eats them, and then is like, "Oh my god, these are hot." And Katara is like, "Ah, flaming fire flakes, and
Who would
they're
have
hot."
thought?
Imagine that. Um, so we get a like propaganda puppet show, which is pretty cool to see. I love
I
that
did
they
love that.
also have the Fire Lord breathing fire out of his mouth for it. It's so funny.
It's
Like,
so funny. And he obliterates the Earth Kingdom guy puppet.
oh yeah,
It's
just
so great.
absolutely destroys.
And I do
And
love that they show
then
that there is like these people are being brainwashed into thinking that
yeah,
Fire Lord
it's
Ozai is
the
the
guy,
one and only. Yeah, it's almost
which I
like
mean,
very
like,
reminiscent of like today, like North Korea or something, how they think of Kim Jong Un or
yeah,
something. It's very,
he's like, I'm the
he's
best,
a
and
god.
I'm
Yeah.
absolutely the best, and
And
there's no
everybody's like,
question
kill
about
your
it. And you're like, okay.
enemies. Yay.
But so we get that. We get a firebender performance that's kind of like a magic show, essentially, where he's just like showing off and doing different tricks and
Mhm.
stuff with firebending, which is cool to see. I like his outfit a lot. The like white and then like red with the Fire Nation.
Yes.
Like it just looks. I'm a sucker for a good outfit. So like I'm just like yeah, he
We
looks
do love
cool.
good costume
And so he's
design.
yeah, and so he's doing that. He says that he needs a volunteer. Aang wants to volunteer, but then Katara ends up getting picked, and Aang is like, "Oh, I wish that was me." And so he's doing this trick where he's got this flaming dragon, and he fakes the flaming dragon is going to attack her, and he's going to like pretend to tame it in order to save her. But then Aang which is so funny. It's such a like kid thing, and not understanding that it's like part of the performance is like, no, I have to
Yeah.
like save her, and like jumps in and uses airbending against the dragon, which it's incredibly animated. It looks so cool whenever he
Yes.
uses the airbending against it, and like it all like dissipates and stuff, and like it
And
just
then it
looks
flows up
awesome.
and it's confetti, and I
Yeah.
love that so much.
And I love the guy being like, "What are you trying to upstage me, kid?" Like, which is just great. Someone, of course, notices that he's the Avatar because, like, duh. And so
Mhm.
then they're forced to try to escape. And this guy who we've seen in background shots that's kind of been watching them is like, "Quick,
Mhm.
like, follow me. Like, I can get you out of here." Which I love how quickly the gang is like, "All right, like,
Like, sure, I
because
guess we'll follow this guy. Yeah.
yeah, they're like, yeah, whatever." And so they run with him. Aang then uses the whistle to try to get Appa to come to them.
Mhm.
So as they're running away, he's using smoke bombs and stuff. The random stranger is using the smoke bombs and stuff to kind of help them escape and
Mhm.
navigate. They get trapped in a corner, but thankfully Appa shows up because the whistle works.
Swoops in
And
and saves the day.
yeah,
Mhm.
I love his tail attack that he uses against the Fire Nation soldiers
Yes.
too. Like he flies down, and like I also love they like really animated his legs whenever he goes in for that landing. I don't know if you noticed it, but like they
No, I
fully
gotta
like
go
stretch
back and look at that.
they fully like stretch out and like do a whole like it's a really thorough animation of him landing in that alley and like turning and like landing down, and then his tail like slamming against the ground and throwing them back. It's really cool,
I
honestly.
gotta
Like
look back at that. Because I
it's
do
good.
love when they really like those little scenes. You're like, they took a couple days on that.
Yeah.
And it's
So
really nice to see. It's beautiful.
they do that. They climb onto Appa's back, and then the guy throws a smoke bomb into the fireworks stack that we had seen, and like makes all the fireworks explode. Which is just fireworks exploding is a cool visual. Always like, come on, it's
Yeah.
fireworks. Like, what are you? Yeah,
Stuff go boom.
yeah, always a win. Um, so they fly away. We learn that this guy's name is Che, and he's an ex-Fire Nation soldier who knows a lot about explosives, and he serves this guy called Zhong Zhong, the deserter. And so he was a Fire Nation general or admiral, but
He
he
couldn't
is a
remember the guy. Yeah.
yeah, he like couldn't remember what rank he was, but and Sokka's like, we get it, he's a high-ranking guy, like doesn't like it doesn't matter, it's fine.
Love Sokka.
Um, and he says that he is the first person to leave the Fire Nation and live, and that Che's the second. And I love his joke. He's like, "But you don't get to be a legend for being like the second. That's okay though. Like it's fine." And he gets out, and it's like,
It's so
it's
good.
totally not
He's like,
okay. Like
that's okay though. Like, oh, Jay.
he's so like dejected about it, kind of. And I also love how he's like, Zhong Zhong is this enlightened genius, and like really like puts him on this really high pedestal.
Pedestal. Mhm.
Yeah, which is funny. And so Chase says that he would be a great person to teach the Avatar firebending, which Sokka is very against this, but both Katara and Aang vote that they should stay and try to do
Mhm.
this. They get ambushed by people with straw hats, and they're taken away. Apparently, Chain knows them, and he like disobeyed them, and so like we've got that kind of conflict there.
Mhm.
Um, and
And then Che
so
like
they
knows the guy, right?
yeah, they're like very familiar with each other and like have a
Mhm.
kind of like um
They're like a
rivalry, I
group or like
guess.
a cult.
Yeah.
I don't know. They're all part of this one group that follows Zhang Zhang.
Yeah, and and like you can see that there's some just like friction between them, like
I
where
do love
they
how
just
Che's
like
like the annoying kid.
yeah, they just
Like
like
this
don't
guy.
they like don't like him. They're like, this guy again. Like, come on, we'll take you back to the thing. Um, so they're taking them to Zhongzhong, essentially. We cut back to the fire festival where Admiral Zhao has arrived, and he's yelling at everyone as he does.
As he does.
Um, yeah, and so he's like, well, the fighting was like down from what it normally is, so that's a good thing. And Zhao's like, dude, I do not care. Like,
I
he's
love
like,
he
I
says,
just
I
want
don't
the
care about your
avatar.
local crime rates. Where's the avatar? I love
He's
also
like, stop.
again, Jason Isaacs makes this character so great. The voice is so perfect. He's commanding without yelling or without screaming. He's very scary and opposing and
Yeah,
very serious, but
yeah, he's
powerful.
like,
He's such a perfect voice for that. Oh,
yeah,
I just
he's
love
so
Jason
good,
Isaacs.
and I love him. Yeah, he's just like, I do not care where I don't. Just tell me where he is, man. Like, I don't care that you fought a little bit less. Like, you still failed.
Yeah.
Um, so we cut back to the gang. Che says that Zhong Zhong won't see Aang and is mad that they even brought Aang here. He says Aang is not ready because he hasn't mastered the other elements yet. He hasn't learned how to water and earthbend properly. And apparently Zhang Zhang could tell by the way that he walks, which is so funny. Like he's like, no, you were walking wrong. Like it's fine. Aang, of course, being Aang and being stubborn and impatient, goes in
Mhm.
anyways. Zhang tells him to get out and that he's a fool. And he like honestly
Oh, he's always
drops
like
some of
spitting
his.
these wise
Oh yeah,
bars.
he's so knowledgeable. Like he's like, fish in the river won't know the river's destiny. It will flow on, but he can never imagine the ocean. And it's like, oh,
I love the way
got
he
him.
says it too, but he can never imagine the ocean.
Yeah,
And
like
I love the way the voice actor says it. It's great. He delivers it great.
he tells Aang that he has no interest in discipline, which is very crucial if he's gonna learn firebending. He says that water is cool and soothing, and earth is steady and stable, but fire is alive, and that it will spread with or without a person. And so he says that Aang is not ready, and that he's like, he just can't. He's not prepared
Mhm.
to master fire. And then we get Roku showing up, and he's like, "Bitch, what did you just
He's like,
say?"
"Did you
Like,
just call me weak, bitch? Uh-uh.
he's like,
I've done this years and years. Like
yeah, he's
I've done
like,
this for 1,000 years."
yeah, he's like, oh, my bad, Roku. Like, all right, I'll teach you, I guess. Like, and so that's where we get him saying that he will teach Aang, and he's like, oh, you'll teach me, like, and I love the like contrast between Aang and Roku and their like demeanor
Yeah.
is so funny, because Roku's obviously like super self-serious and like, no, like you're gonna teach me this, and Aang is just like, oh my
Yeah.
god, really? Like you'll teach?
He's a kid. I really love this episode for it because it really emphasizes that Aang is a kid. I think there's a line later in this. No, it's in one of the later episodes that we'll get to, but he's like, I'm just a kid. And
Mhm.
I like that this really emphasizes that and his impatience and his temperament. It's very cute,
Yeah.
but it all works.
So
Yeah.
we get some shots of Sokka fishing and Katara practicing waterbending, and Aang is getting his first lesson, and he's told to stand and concentrate. So he follows Zhang up a hill where he practices breathing, and Aang is incredibly bored about this and is like, "I know how to breathe, like it's fine." And Zhang tells him a story of a past student who only cared about the power of fire and just wants and like on how to destroy his enemies with it and not really like focusing on the discipline that you need in order to control it because he's like without control it destroys everything around it,
Mhm.
like it's fire, it will spread.
I do love
And
this like constant reinforcement of fear of fire. This is like
yeah,
really the first we hear about it too. We don't meet really any other characters who are afraid of it. But the only other characters that we see that do firebend are these ruthless kind of characters that have no
yeah,
fear and are very powerful. So it's very cool to see somebody who's like, I want to be a gentle person. I want to create life. Like I want to foster life. I
hmm,
don't. He's the only interaction he has with fire seems to be like it's destruction. It's evil. It's
yeah,
he's like scared of it, which makes it so much worse.
it's the first person we see besides Iroh who doesn't really use fire, but like he just uses it for more like
Hmm.
menial stuff. Like he just heats his tea, like
He
and
heats his
like
tea up. Yeah,
like or
he's
like makes
warm
a hot
food.
tub. Like he
Yeah,
doesn't.
it's a hot tub in the forest.
This is the first character that really emphasizes and gets into the like actual nature of firebending and what it is, and like that as he's saying, like fire is innately destructive in its use, like, and that if you're not careful with that, like you're just going to destroy everything around you. Like that's what fire
Yeah,
does, and he just constantly reinforces that throughout this episode. And then we also, as we get into the episode, see it visually and like through the actions of the
it is
characters and
very
what ends up
cool.
happening.
Yeah.
um
I do
so
like
that's
how
great.
too he describes that it's the only element that's alive that will
Yeah.
keep moving on
Can,
and destroying it with its own
yeah,
mind,
like
quote unquote.
like after you start it, like it will continue to go. Like water bending, if you stop bending water, like water just flows out or
It'll,
does what,
yeah.
it just stops. Like, and earth bending obviously only moves if you like are trying to move it, and same with air,
Hmm.
like aside from the wind, I guess. But that's like a different. That's not.
That's Mother
They're,
Nature. Yeah.
they're very different from the way that fire innately
Yes.
operates,
Yeah.
and he's very aware of that and trying to get Aang to understand that. And so then we get Zhao making his way down the river to Zhangjiang. He throws a bunch of fire at his followers in the forest. We are like getting hints essentially that Zhao is the pupil that Zhang Zhang was talking
Hmm.
about. Um, we get uh, back to Zhongjong, and he's talking to Aang, and he's telling him to learn restraint, or he will risk destroying yourself and everything around you. Aang apologizes and is like excited to work with fire, and Zhong has Aang practice keeping a leaf from burning up, and he's like, you need to, like do as much as you can to stop the fire from spreading to the edge of this leaf. And Aang is saying that he's ready for more, and Zhong leaves, and then Aang is like, oh, I can do more now, like, and he starts to try to firebend more, and Aang doesn't listen and like starts experimenting with fire and like gets a decent flame going and stuff, and just starts doing more and more, and he burns Katara, like he creates this huge like cyclone almost of like fire around him,
Mm-hmm.
and it burns Katara, and so she's crying. I love how like almost not like overacted, but like I love how dramatic this like sequence is where like she starts
It
like
really
crying.
is.
Like it's so hammed up,
But
honestly.
like,
Like it
her hands got burned,
I mean,
Alex.
yeah,
Like
like no, it's
that's what she uses to waterbend.
it's just so
Like
funny.
she's
Like
that would hurt.
it's very emphatic, like both that
It
and then
is.
Sokka
It's
coming
like the
over
slow
and like
motion. Yeah.
yeah, and then like Sokka immediately starts like yelling at him. Katara runs away. Aang is obviously like super sorry,
He flew
and
too
like
close to the
immediately
sun.
immediately feels regret, like um and so we get Katara putting her hands in the river and they magically heal, which I think this is the first
This is
time
the
we
first time
see
we ever see this. Yes.
healing with
Healing.
waterbending,
Hmm.
which is super cool. Zhong comes up and says that she has healing abilities and that like some of the Water Nation like tribe have these abilities, which is like again
Which
more
is
lore
cool,
stuff.
but I'm like, it's very convenient at this
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I love the show, but I hate to bash it. But I was like, well, how convenient is that?
So yeah, she gets her hands healed, and he again waxes about how like he essentially hates the fact that he's like linked with this destructive force, and he wishes he could like create and heal and do things like that as opposed to being fire.
Yeah, he
um
calls it like a burning curse.
yeah,
And I think that just really
just
shows like I feel like it's one of those things, the more afraid of it you are, the more it's going to like
be
overpower
a
you
problem.
and be
Yeah,
a problem. Yeah. Like you attract what you
and
fear kind of thing.
yeah, and so he again says fire brings only destruction and pain, and then fire bombs start getting thrown at them because Zhao is attacking. Zhang Zhang makes a crazy firewall
I love
that's
that.
just the dude is so powerful, honestly. Which like I mean, yeah, he's a
Yeah.
firebending master, so like checks out. But like it's
Checks
such a
out.
cool
But
visual.
this is, I think,
Uh,
like the first use of that we see, like that much fire bending at once.
yeah, so like that's super cool. We get him blocking off the boats, and so they have to like get onto the shore and then go to like combat them. Zhao says that his old teacher gave up fighting a long time ago, so we get like confirmation that Zhao
Confirmation. Mhm.
was his people. Um, and so then we start to get a like fight between Zhao and Zhang sort of, because Zhang doesn't really like fight actually. Like he like is like, no, I'm good, and kind of dips out, and then Zhao like tells his soldiers to go find him in the forest because he's like, oh,
Mhm.
it's a trick. He's like gone. Um, Katara runs back to the camp to get them out. Aang is sulking in the hut, and he's like, "I'm never gonna firebend again. Like I can't do it." And she's like, "Well, you're gonna have to at some point, bro." Like,
Yeah, she's like, it's fine. I'm healed. And he's like,
yeah, and
what? She's like,
he's
I
like,
don't know.
"How?"
Magic. We got to go.
She's like, "We'll explain it later. Like it's fine, but right now we need." It's the most stereotypical, like, "I'll explain later," but right at this moment we have to leave. Like, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay,
Which I
well, I
guess,
mean,
like,
yeah,
what else are you going to do? Yeah.
exactly. So yeah, we get that. We get Zhao fighting recklessly because like Aang, of course,
Mm.
whenever she's like, "Oh, they're attacking Zhang Zhang," Aang's like, "Oh, we gotta go help," and so he goes back, and we get like a 1v1 with Aang and Zhao, which is again highlighting Aang not using attack. He is just
Hmm.
straight up evasive and defensive this whole time, but
Hmm.
also realizes some of the lessons that Zhang was teaching him, and that the destructive nature of fire, and that like his pupil, which we now know was Zhao, was just interested in like the destruction and like using it like that. And so Aang just starts jumping over all of his ships, getting Zhao to burn his own ships in the process, which is
I
like
do love it.
so smart. And like he's also just, I love how much shit he talks right here. Also, it's so funny.
It's so
He
good.
just
He even taunts him
like
with Zuko a little bit. He's like,
yeah,
I
he's
think Zuko's even better than you. And that
yeah, and
really
like
gets him angry.
it's so funny. He's like, oh man, I don't know why I thought that you would be better than Zuko, but I guess not. Like,
That was it.
and it's like it's so good.
Dang, you little
So
shit.
So he's just
So
evading
funny.
him and getting him to ruin his ships. And then at the end of it, Aang is like, "Well, you've lost this battle." And he's like, "You haven't even thrown a single punch." And he's like, "Yeah, but you have, you idiot." Like,
Period.
and then
Period.
Zhao realizes that all of his ships are destroyed, and Aang leaves, and he's like, "Have fun on the walk home," and hops onto Appa, and they fly
Such a
away,
dick move. I love it.
which is great. We then get Aang having a burn wound, and Katara's like, "Oh, I can heal you," and she like does that. Um, and then yeah, it's weird that because Sokka's like, "When have you been able to do that?" And she's like,
Yeah,
"Well, I guess I always knew how." And it's like, I
bruh.
mean, sure. And
Sure.
I love his joke. He's like where he like starts naming all the times where he's like, "Oh,
What
that
about
would have
all
been
the times
nice."
I got hurt? Like, I do like
Yeah,
that. I feel like the writers were like, we have to point that out, that we kind
yeah.
of did just put that in there.
Which like it's I understand the power, like she always had that power, technically she just didn't know to do it. But
Because,
like it's not
I
like
mean, she had
she
no waterbenders growing up. She was the only one.
but the thing is it's not like she learned, it's not like someone was like, "Hey, if you try to do this you can do it." She just like put her hands in the water and they healed. Like what,
Yeah.
there's no inciting anything that made it different from like any other time when she would have
But
possibly
like,
been injured and
I wonder
like
if it's
tried
because
to,
like her hands were in that moment like freshly wounded, and
I
maybe
mean
her
like,
body. It was like a kind of thing. I don't know, like your body knows to heal itself or something, or
yeah, it's just
I
it's
don't
such a
know.
funny thing. Like you were
It's
saying, it is a
yeah,
very just like it's a convenient thing where they're like, "Oh, hey,
very
we can."
convenient.
I also I wonder when in the, and like they might talk about it in the art book some, but like where in the development process if they like had the idea
Mm.
for healing with
If they had
waterbending to
this
like,
later or earlier,
yeah,
that's what
or like
I'm
if
also
from the
thinking
beginning they
about.
were like, "Yeah, we can use like it'd be cool if some of the waterbenders could heal too, like to really give that counterpoint to the destructive, nature of fire and stuff." Or if that was like
Because like,
a,
oh, like we need this later on. It'd be very helpful if we had somebody who could heal wounds.
yeah, but or if they like during this episode were like, "Hey, this would be cool. We should do this."
But I do like,
So,
and it does come up later in the other episodes, and with the theme of sexism of the women are the healers and the
oh
men
yeah,
are the
yeah.
fighters. I do
Hmm.
like they do address that. They do. I like the way that they use it. So I'll let it slide.
We'll let it slide. But yeah,
Again,
it's a very convenient thing in this episode.
it does just
She
come up
just,
suddenly. Like we don't see anybody else do it previously or even hear it mentioned, but we'll
yeah,
give them
she's like,
that. That's
I
fair.
guess I guess I always knew how to. This power was always there. It's like, all right, well, sure.
Well, sure.
I guess.
Anyway, yeah. So when we come back, we will be talking more about this episode and how its absence from the live action series actually affects the narrative. So we will be right back.
Hi, I'm Alex. Enjoying the show on the Aspect Network? Then you should check out my show, Philosophy of X. Each week, I pair an X-Men character, story, or concept with a relevant philosophical topic and explore how the two relate to one another. Join me on my journey to examine the world of X-Men through philosophy. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to Bending the Narrative. Each week we dive into Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender live action series, and while you can find our overall thoughts on this season in our first episode, throughout book one we will be discussing in further detail how each episode compares to its live action version. So this episode was not featured in the live action series at all. So Kate, how does the exclusion of this episode change the live action series?
It changes a lot. We don't even see Aang Firebend at all. We don't see Katara learn how to heal. We don't even know that. Did at the end? I think they mention it that
Yeah,
she could
she
do
does in the
it
finale, yeah,
in the
but
finale, but like we don't
prior to
see her
that,
learn it. We
no.
don't see
Yeah,
everybody
and
else
then
learn that she could do that. That that's a possibility.
mm-mm.
And
We get
Aang doesn't learn firebending.
it's like with it's the same with all the other episodes that are excluded from the live action one for some reason. They had the time, because again, like we say every segment, it was longer than the than
It was
book one
longer
was,
than yeah.
which is wild. But it just takes away either lore or character or both. Like you just lose those elements which are crucial and like what makes the show the show. Like we get less for Admiral Zhao, right? We don't get the fact
Yeah,
that he was like a pupil
a
that
people
was
at all.
just obsessed with fire and power and stuff, which like obviously you could tell that from the way that he's characterized in the show. They do a great job hamming him up as a villain in the live action. I do
Hmm.
admittedly like his character there. Like he's just a great like
He's a good villain.
yeah, he's
And
a
that does
comically
show
like
through. Yeah, that
I'm
does
gonna
come
take
through.
over everything that I can, like, and so you're like, okay, like that's cool, but you lose some of the nuance there. Not that he's like the most nuanced person, but like
Hmm.
it's still nice to get a semblance of like he was a pupil at one point, and
Hmm.
you get to like learn about that kind of, and you
He wasn't just
see
born that way.
yeah,
And
and
yeah.
you see like someone who knew him when he was younger and saw what he was becoming and said like, "Nah, I'm out actually. Like this is not the way to
Hmm.
go." And so like you lose that, which is a bummer. You lose like you were saying, Aang doesn't firebend at all in this season. He doesn't even attempt to. We don't see him do anything with any of the other elements in this
He
season,
doesn't
which is
even
a
want to
huge
bend,
yeah, it's a
but he
huge
flies.
problem. Like it's not it's just sure,
And
I
like I don't
guess
get it. Why are we're taking these out and for what? Like what is it replaced with? It's never replaced with anything that
substantive.
amounts to the same. Yeah, with substance. We never get anything of equal amount. So
Yeah,
I don't know why. Like that's my big question. I'm like, why take it out? Because
like
what are you?
they take it out and then put stuff from later seasons in
Then they're
that
like,
you don't
Cabbage Man,
that you like don't really need
Azula.
to like see yeah, which like oh god. Yeah, I mean we get nothing really of value to like replace it with. Like they just throw in things that we get later in the series that we don't need in season 1. Like I mean as I've talked about I love Azula, but she didn't need to be there. Like there's a reason that
Yeah.
she was in the finale and then in book 2 as opposed to like being throughout season 1. And
Mhm.
you lose a lot of that by like inserting her and then taking away the other stuff like this episode and the other like 5 or 6 episodes that are just completely axed from this season. Like
That don't need to be there.
yeah, it's just crucial stuff. And like it also you lose any of the nuance with firebending as a concept by taking out this episode. Because like we were talking about earlier, this is the first character that really talks about the nature of firebending besides just like oh they can throw fire with their hands
Yeah.
and like use it to print things, which like obviously but he's really talking about it on a more like conceptual level, which is nice, and you just don't get that in the live action version,
Yeah.
which
I
is
feel like he's the first
dumb.
person too to talk about like there's a fear of it and there's this
Hmm.
there can be this evil to it. It almost like even talking about it now, it almost reminds me of like the dark side. Like there's a dark side to it and
Yeah,
but you have to actively lean into it and
control
like cuz
yourself,
and
yeah,
control yourself and if you don't do that, if you aren't disciplined, it will take over
yeah.
you.
It's a very very like Yoda, like you need patience, you need like you're not ready,
Mhm.
you're being brash and not responsible, and like I can't teach you this because you're not prepared for it in the right ways.
Yeah. It's
um
Aang's Yoda moment. Exactly. Yeah.
yeah, and it's also a very like this is also the first time where we get, I'm pretty sure this is the first time anyways, where we get the idea that there's a correct order to be learning the elements.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I think it may have been like briefly mentioned or
Mentioned.
referenced, but like I think it's more so that like Aang was starting with waterbending because like they had access to a waterbender through Katara, and so like that's why he's starting there. But like it is supposed to follow the, and I did some like googling about this to like make sure, and like it's not necessarily a like hard rule that I don't think, but like generally they're supposed to learn.
Traditionally, that's
Yeah,
the
you're
path
supposed
that
to
they go on.
learn the elements like in the Avatar cycle. So
But
like
as we
he,
discussed before, Aang is not on a traditional path at all.
yeah,
He's the exception.
yeah, and so like
Mhm.
he's supposed to learn waterbending and then earthbending and then firebending, which like he does eventually
Mhm.
do. Like that is the order that he goes in.
Mhm.
But so like that's how it's supposed to be done. And so here him trying to like jump out of order, and you have Zhang Zhang even like commenting on it, being like, "You're not ready. Like you need to
Mhm.
like learning waterbending and then learning earthbending will give you the skills necessary and the understanding necessary to then start learning firebending." And we don't get any of that in the live action one because again we don't see him even attempt to do anything
You
other
attempt to
than
do anything.
airbend. Like
Yeah.
he
To
just doesn't,
fly?
yeah, it's just
I'm
not,
still not over that. Sorry.
which
This is
they the showrunners, I'm pretty sure I saw a thing a while back that were like made a comment on that. They were like, he's not flying, he's just falling. Like, and it's like, okay, I guess, yeah.
girl. Girl, be for real. Come on.
um, but yeah, he just doesn't even attempt to do anything besides airbending in the show, which is a
It's
choice.
so
And it's
sad.
it's again, you lose like the, we, as much as we were kind of joking about how like dramatic and hammed up the moment when he burns Katara is, and like all of that stuff, like it's a still pretty crucial part of their characters and like their relationship. It's a very, and especially Aang's relationship to firebending, because then it makes him very reluctant to want to learn it later on
Mm-hmm.
when he needs to and
Like
like
even
has
approach
to.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, like even when Katara, like in this episode, she's like, well, you're gonna have to eventually. And like there's no real resolution to that conflict in this episode because it comes up later down the line. But like that's conflict that we don't even get set up in the first place in the live
Yeah.
action season
And
because
that is important. But I guess, I mean, I guess you can take it out, but now it's boring.
yeah,
Like now I don't
yeah, now
care.
it's
Now
just
it's like,
like,
okay, he'll just learn firebending now. There's no
yeah, like,
conflict.
and
Why do I even need to watch this?
do we think they'll try to put this into season two? Like like because you could, like you can,
Mm.
because it's not
Like we
like it's a
could bring him in
super,
later.
yeah, it's not like there's a super this has to happen before the siege of the Northern Water Tribe. Like it could be in season two where they're on their journeys and they come across this guy and like he
I
tries to learn
guess.
firebending there.
But
But
it
like,
adds to like the rush and that he needs to learn this. He knows now, like he needs to learn it by summer. And
yeah, well, I mean, again, in the live action one,
but
they don't know
they
about
don't know
that
that
until
yet.
like they're like the only people who know that are
The Marvel's extra
Ozai.
credit scene.
Yeah, at the very end of the finale is Ozai is make it the ticking clock. Like the gang doesn't even have the ticking clock in the live action one, so like there's not that. And then also I feel like if you, there's the problem whenever you like shift stuff around because like they could in theory put it in the middle of season two, but then like season two you need like Toph is like the big
Hmm.
thing there that you need to introduce, and like him learning earthbending and all of that, and then like Appa being taken, which like we'll see how they have to do that, right?
They
But
have
like
to do that. That
I can't, I don't know. I mean,
if you
we're
take it
not going to
out
get,
though,
we're not going to get an entire episode focused on Appa. There's no way. One, they're not going to CGI him
they don't have
for
the
a whole
budget.
episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not going to do that, which I understand. Like it's fine. It's one of the best episodes, but like whatever.
It's fine, I guess.
But like, I mean, we're not gonna. I doubt we're gonna get the library because we already saw the owl.
Yeah,
I forget his
Washington.
name. Yeah,
Washington.
we already got him. So
Hmm.
like they're probably not gonna do that. We got what else from season two? Did they shoehorn into the season? Um, like
They should exactly.
because I'm like, well, like again, they now will have the space runtime
Hmm.
wise because there's things that they already put. Like we got
Oh, and I
through
do
like the
forget
cave
in this episode, in the actual the deserter episode
and
in the animated
yeah,
series, we do get the hint of the library. Actually, I forgot to mention that.
we
Speaking of the
do.
library, yeah, because that's how Zhao learns that. Oh wait, no, this is later. This is not in this episode. That's in a later episode. I'm confusing them. These episodes all melt together for me.
No, they do like the yeah.
The finale, yeah,
But yeah, it's like
I
so
take
they
that
will
back.
they will have the runtime, but then I feel like they're just gonna fill it with stuff from book three
From
probably
book
for
three,
some
yeah.
reason. Which like I don't.
Well, like
I get.
they're. Do you think they'll do? Oh, what is it called when they're on the beach?
There's no way they're gonna give us that episode. No way.
I think they will because it's solely because it's a fan favorite.
I mean, I guess, but maybe. Again, the
But they won't. I'm so
it's the
mean.
prop.
I'm like, they won't do it right though.
But this is the problem with like shifting things around so much is I'm like, because yeah, you in theory then like by taking, because we got Cave of Two Lovers in the
Hmm.
middle of season one as
But
opposed
with
to in book two, but
Sokka and
like
Katara.
yeah, which is weird. And so you I guess in theory have time in season two to put this episode there instead, but then I don't know. That's why I wish I could
Where
see
would it fit? Yeah.
this writer's room at work because it'd
Let
be
us in
real
there.
interesting
Guys, get us in that room. Get
to
us
see
in
like how
that
they're
room.
like blocking things out. Like I want to see those post-it notes on the wall and like be like, oh,
Yeah.
we can move. It's just such a like why'd you mess with it so
Why?
much? Like why'd you
Why?
like you had the blueprint, you have the show, and you just I don't know. It's weird.
You just had to shove it all into one thing. Whatever. Whatever it was budget, CGI. Just again, live action. I like it because it's animated.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fine. I mean it so yeah.
That's again, the point is, oh, it's fine.
in summary, they lost a lot by not
In
having
summary,
the
they lost a
second
lot.
episode
Yeah.
in live action, which is
Yeah, we don't
annoying.
get
But
anybody getting burnt, anybody getting hurt by fire, except
we
when
don't
it's
get
a villain
Zhao
doing it. We don't get
backstory.
Aang learning a lesson again. We don't get
Nope.
Katara learning a lesson.
Nope.
We don't get Katara being strong. Nope.
Nope. None
Nope.
of it. You wanted that?
We get
Yeah.
Sokka being
Psych.
funny. That's
Yeah.
it.
That's a consistent through line. But yeah, we lose. I
And
mean,
Cabbage Man.
the whole episode is gone, which is a big bummer.
It's very sad. I know.
Ugh,
Anything else you want to say on it?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we've driven our point home. In conclusion, fine.
Yeah.
All right, up next, Alex and I are going to bring back our segment called Whispers of the White Lotus. We will be right back.
Hi, my name is Negan.
And I'm Bree. Enjoying this show on the Aspect Network?
Then check out Viltrumics, an Invincible podcast.
Each week, we go back and discuss your favorite episodes of the series and review new episodes as they release right on Amazon Prime.
Join us as we travel space, time, and the multiverse with Mark Grayson and discuss one of the most exciting superhero series on TV on Viltrumics, here on the Aspect Network.
And now, back to the show.
All right, welcome back to Bending the Narrative. Today we are bringing back the segment Whispers of the White Lotus. This is a segment where we explore the deeper narratives and storylines of the Avatar universe. This episode plays with the idea of Aang learning firebending much sooner than he was supposed to. Alex, let's start with you. What do you think would have happened if Aang was able to learn firebending in season 1 and not in the order of the Avatar cycle that he does eventually learn it in?
See, this is tough because it's hard to imagine him going out of order because like the whole like this episode really hammers home that like he's not ready to do it, and so that's why he can't. I think it would have, I mean, like, not that the Avatar isn't overpowered anyways, but like I feel like Aang being able to learn and like master firebending sooner would have made him way more difficult to deal with, like going forward. Like, because he already wipes the floor with pretty much everyone that he comes into contact with,
Yeah,
like
with
anyways.
with
And
airbending.
yeah, and he's just being like purely evasive. So if you give him the ability to master something that is then like purely offensive, except for, I mean, like we see it for defense sort of in this episode with John just making the big wall. But like
Yeah.
if Aang then starts to use the mostly offensive nature of firebending, like in conjunction with his airbending, like no one's stopping him at all. Like it's just not even gonna be
Yeah.
close. Like I can't like. Can you imagine him in Zuko's fights? Like if he had been able to do firebending too? Like
It's almost hard to even picture him firebending at all because he's so evasive. He doesn't like to attack.
yeah,
He like, and I think that is a big thing that he struggles with when he does eventually learn firebending is actually using it to attack somebody.
yeah. It's
He's
not.
so
It's just
against
not his
that.
thing. Yeah, and it also
Mhm.
like it. I wonder if it would have helped or hindered him with the other elements too. 'Cause it's like we were talking about
Mm.
before the break, in the way that the Avatar is traditionally supposed to go through the Avatar cycle and learning the elements, like one flows into the other. And so,
Mhm.
like by skipping two or going out of order, I feel like that probably would have then impacted his ability to like comprehend and learn the other like waterbending and earthbending, because then he'd be trying to
Mm.
do the techniques and stuff that he has from firebending, as opposed to
With
like
that.
yeah, as opposed to doing like taking them as he's supposed to, you know.
Yeah,
And
because a
so
lot of the waterbending movements work for firebending movements. Like I know Zuko takes a lot of inspiration from of like
mhm,
waterbending movements, and it works
yeah,
the same with fire almost sometimes. I've
yeah,
seen like because like Iroh, I remember, and this is way later. Like Iroh tells him to take inspiration from
mhm,
the other elements to
yeah,
use with fire, which I find interesting. So
yeah.
like
So
I
it's
think
like
that's why it does work that way, and why
mhm,
to go from air
to
to
fire.
fire, it's and that's
You're
why
just making a
I think I
jump.
said earlier, I said something where I was like, I feel like fire is not, it's not the opposite of air, but for Aang, I feel like fire is the most opposite from
Yeah.
him.
Well, it's
and
because
his
it's
personality.
like
Well, it's the last one.
yeah, exactly. It's the last one that
Yeah.
he's supposed to hit. So it's like it's the hardest thing for him to like grasp and wrap his mind around because it's so different from what he's normally doing. Which like earthbending is also that, and the way that it's literally like structured and how like you have earth and air being on the opposite ends and then water and fire being
Mhm.
on the opposite ends. But like in a learning pattern, like it makes sense as to why that is the last one that he would go to master. And then it also we see this in Korra when she's going from water to
Mm,
earth to fire and then air, and then she struggles the
air.
most with air, right?
I do love that. That's such a good detail, and I like that that continues
Yeah,
on with all of the seasons.
it's just
It's just interesting. I like it.
it again it hammers home like how well thought out the structure of all of them
Mm,
are, and like all
yes.
of the bent like both the nature of the different bendings like for the different elements, and then also the avatar cycle and how they structured that cycle, and like the relationship between the
Mhm.
like the bending and the elements and everything, and how they like interplay with each other, and like what would be difficult for one type of bending versus another, and like
Mhm.
how they then like relate. It's all super, yeah, it's so hard to
It's
like
the world
imagine them.
lore that just makes it. It seems like this whole universe is so much bigger than Aang, and
Yeah.
that there's so much more to it than just this story, which is
Hmm.
the most exciting part. Anyways, I'm getting off topic, but
No, yeah, it's and like the reason it's so difficult to think about him going out of order is because like the way that it is, you're like, well, yeah, this it makes sense. Like this is how
that he
it
has
is.
to do it that way.
Like you're
Yeah,
just like, oh
that's the
yeah.
way it is.
One thing I did think about though that would be much different if he was able to learn and master firebending here is that like there would be no reason for Zuko to join the gang.
Yeah.
Like there'd be a reason emotionally for Zuko to want to do that, but like they
Mhm.
would just be like, screw off.
Why?
Like we don't want
Screw
he's already
off. Yeah.
like he can already firebend, bro. Like what are you go away? You've been trying to hunt us. Like we don't need you. Because like the whole
Yeah. The
reason he's
main
able
reason they need him, they're like, he's the only guy who could teach you.
yeah, they concede because they're like, well, he needs to learn firebending still, but like he could just be like and like throw fire at Zuko and be like, go away. Like
Yeah. He'd be like, I'm
there's no
actually
need
a
for him.
pro right now. Yeah.
So like
And I
actually
wonder, like with
it
Boom Boom
probably
Man,
yeah.
with him facing off against that, I wonder how that would have gone. Because is
I
he?
mean
No, he hasn't learned it by then, has he?
no, because that's
No,
right
that's
before.
right before.
Because that's like as Zuko's trying to get to them and be like, hey guys, like here's this dude who's gonna kill you.
Zuko
Like
here.
um
That's so good.
but yeah, no, so like it probably would make it to where they don't like get peace at the end because like Zuko then also coming and joining the gang, and then like by the time he
Yeah.
defeats Ozai, like and then Zuko's able to take over the Fire Nation and like a respectful and like bring them back to the
Mhm.
way they're supposed to be. Like you would probably lose that if Aang learns firebending here. Like
Yeah,
it
you're
would
right.
be
Like the
actually
whole world and story would be off balance even. Like,
yeah, it would just
I wonder
fall
what would
apart
have
if
happened.
Aang was impatient and learned it here. 'Cause then you
Yeah.
just like screw things up for way later down the line because
I
it
wonder
tells you good.
if he could have joined another way though.
I mean, like,
Mm,
that's one of those things where you think about it. It was like him joining is something that like has to happen, which like it obviously like does for the way that the
mhm.
story ends up like working out. But like if it would have found
Yeah.
a way to like work itself out to where he does still end up with them, and like
Well, I mean,
how
he
that would
sure
go,
could. I mean, he's like, I'm the son of the Fire Nation. Like,
like I'll try to help.
I know it inside and out, literally.
Yeah,
I can help you out.
yeah, which would
Like they
probably work.
Sokka would have been like, oh, that would have been a good advantage in battle, kind of thing.
Yeah, but yeah,
I
like the
wonder.
primary reason though, they'd be like, hey, we already got it. Like we don't need
Yeah.
your help
That is so
afterward.
wild that just something here all the way this early
Hmm.
affects something all the way at the end. Oh, this is
It's a good show. If
it's
you guys
the
didn't know,
guys, if you didn't know, this show is well written and it's
they really
well
thought
thought out.
they thought this through. It's pretty
I
crazy.
think they were thinking about this.
Yeah,
They thought about this show.
but again, it's just like planting those seeds like super early on, and getting that like tease and being like, no, he's not ready to learn that now, and like these are the
Hmm.
reasons he's not ready to learn that now, and like there's a reason that you'll see later on why like he does need to learn it then as opposed to now, and it's
Hmm.
so
And
he
even like
learns it after he's
Zuko
learned.
needs to learn it differently. Because
Yeah, because he
like
takes
they need
his
to learn it
teach
from
like
each
what
other.
he's like yeah like what he has learned over the course of the next of book 1 and book 2 and into book 3 impacts the way that he teaches Aang in book 3. Like he doesn't
Hmm.
like Zuko in book 1 would have been a terrible teacher for Aang in
Yeah.
book 1. Like there's no, or even like it just wouldn't work. Like they both need that growth on the way to
Mhm.
then whenever they do finally like interact and Zuko joins them. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, it's such a good
It's yeah,
show.
it's such a good show. You're like, you can't change anything.
Yeah, it just
Yet
like
the
it's
live
kind of fun
action
to think
did.
about, but yeah, like you just
I'm going back to that and rehashing
we
again.
can't change anything, and then you remember that some people thought that they could actually,
That
and
they
you're like,
could do that. Hmm.
yike, yike.
Yikes.
There's a couple of things you can add. The 41st, that's there, right? That
41st
was good.
Amendment, yeah. That was a good
You're
addition.
good. You're good.
Sure. I feel like
But see,
that was something though that
that's
was
not
in the
see, but
writer's
again,
pockets.
that's not changing anything. That's adding things. There's a difference, and I just, anyways, we've talked about that so many times.
We
I
hashed that
mean,
a million times.
yeah, but I mean, I think that
If
at the
Aang
end of the
learned
day,
firebending. Would
yeah,
he
it's
have
a good.
used it against the Fire Nation in the Siege of the North? Do you think
Probably that
how would
also
that have worked while being in the North Pole, I wonder?
probably not in a beneficial way because like everything there
Mm.
would just start melting.
Yeah. Which
Like
is
they
the
don't.
opposite of what he wants to do. Would he have, do you think he would have fought Zuko? I wonder if been able to like I mean he still is able to take out a lot of the ships, but the majority of it was the reason that battle didn't go is because there was just so many of the ships to take out. It
Yeah,
had nothing to do with his skill
yeah.
as a
So I mean, it's
bender.
not like yeah. I don't think that much would have changed there necessarily.
I'm
His
trying to
one
think
v
of like
ones, which he
battles that he
already
does
like
have.
automatically like claps. I mean, I guess he would have been more well equipped to face Azula in the end
Mm.
of book 2, right? That's when that happens. Yeah, because then book
Mm-hmm.
book 3 is when he has his hair for a second after
Is
he's
this the
been
hair?
well, he
Yeah.
does. But
Oh, I'm so
yeah, I mean,
excited for that episode.
I guess he would have been more well equipped to face her like at that point in time,
hmm
arguably. But even then, still, she's like literally a prodigy. So
She can
like,
sweep the floor with anyone, no matter.
yeah.
She sweeps the floor with
The only reason
well-trained
the only
firebenders.
reason she loses is because she defeats herself in the end. And oh my god, I'm gonna have so much to talk about
We're
whenever we eventually get there.
I
Like
know.
we can't get
We
into that
can't even
right
open
now.
that. We can't even
But yeah,
open
we can.
that.
Um, yeah. So I mean, again, I think the the show like it pans out the way that it has to because they structured it very well.
Very
Good
well, and
job.
it all makes sense. Good job, guys. You did it. Like I do
Yeah.
love that the theme in the show is harmony and balance, and that even the
Hmm.
story reflects that. Like it has
Yeah.
to go this way. You can't go out of order.
Yeah.
You'll lose the balance. You have to be patient, and Aang has to learn this patience. And
Hmm.
it is a good way to be like, hey, readers, they can't just skip this. Like, because you know, sometimes you're watching something, you're like, why can't he just do this? And I
Yeah.
do like that they have these episodes. They're like, guys, he can't just
Well,
do
this
this
is
right
why.
away.
Yeah. Like there's a
Yeah,
very big and real reason for why.
which is such a great writer thing to do. Because I know you like if you're writing something, you're like, okay, what are the ways you can get around this that I'm not pointing out right now? What are
Hmm.
all the other pathways this can go, and why does it have to go this way?
Yeah, making it very
I
like
guess what's the
foolproof
word?
as into like
Yeah,
this is the way that it has like there's a reason it's this way and it's these reasons and like if you try to do it a different way it messes everything up and
yeah,
here's why and you could very like clearly see that, which is good. It's good stuff.
it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Yeah.
Yes, so I guess that's it for this segment this time before we start diving into book 2 and 3 stuff.
I know.
Just
Yeah, we're gonna get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, so thank you everyone for tuning in to this episode of Bending the Narrative. Next week, we encounter the residents of the Northern Air Temple in the appropriately titled The Northern Air Temple. But before that, Kate, where can people find you online?
You could find me on Instagram at Kate the Official. That's about it.
Awesome. And you can find me online at AP Batman with 2 T's. Please be sure to subscribe here to The Aspect on YouTube and any platform where podcasts can be found. Please give us a like, leave a comment, and turn on that notification bell so that you never miss an episode. You can also follow us on Twitter/X, Instagram, and TikTok at The Aspect Co. Thank you so much for listening.
And Flameo Hot Man.